The Emo Social Club has been reviewing classic, iconic, glorious albums from the past 20 years or beyond or less than that. We did it before. We'll do it again. We'll talk about records we love, talk about records we have heard for the first time.
Sometimes people are a little bit late to the game and then they catch up eventually.
And it could be us. We could be late.
We could be late, but for this album, we weren't late.
We were not late on this
Absolutely
one.
not.
On this episode, we are reviewing American Idiot by Green Day. Lizzie, before we get into our thoughts and our opinions on it, tell us a little more about Green Day and American Idiot.
This was their 7th album.
Like, after doing AFI and being like, oh, this is their big one. This was their 6th record. It's like, Jesus Christ.
What are we doing here? Listen, I know the Green Day lore, all right? Then let's not talk about it. But
Green Day was gigantic.
yeah,
That's fair.
It was released on September 21st, 2004 via Reprise. And this was a concept album, aka punk rock opera. This features Jesus of Suburbia, who is essentially a lower middle class anti-hero. This is pretty much a direct analysis on society during the early 2000s in a direct letter, essentially, to 9/11, the Bush era, and going against the government during that time. Anti-authority. Okay. We have the singles American Idiot, Holiday, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Wake Me Up When September Ends, and Jesus of Suburbia. Recording took 10 months, and I think this is one of the first albums we actually have a number of how much that this costs to make.
Yeah.
$650,000.
Can't get that anymore.
You know, absolutely not. They'd be like, goofy.
Yeah.
Pack it up.
Make a rock opera for $650,000? Nah.
This did chart in 27 countries. Here in the United States, it was number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart and became one of the overall best-selling albums of all time.
Yep.
This also went platinum 6 times.
Yep.
Boulevard of Broken Dreams won a Grammy. This album also won Best Rock Album at the Grammys as well.
Sure did.
This is a very interesting review from Entertainment Weekly that I feel I need to include because it's so what is happening here. Despite being based on a musical theater concept that periodically makes no sense, Green Day makes the journey entertaining enough.
Produced by Rob Cavallo, who also produced The Black Parade.
There we go. It all comes together.
That was kind of one of the reasons. And Reprise Records, so I'm assuming it was a little bit of a deal there. I didn't mention this in the last one, but I also think this record exists because of AFI's Sing the Sorrow too.
Oh my God, Ryan.
Later. The black and red was really the thing, man. It's like you had My Chem come out with Helena, and then you had this, and AFI had just done it. And I'm like, dude, there's no way. There's no way you're all not talking to the same people over here, you know? And then Marilyn Manson comes out and says, oh, I'm the reason that all these bands are doing that. And it's like, okay, grandpa. I mean, this is definitely like the emo album from Green Day. The same way we talk about The Black Parade, the same way we talk about Three Cheers, the same way we talked about Sing the Sorrow, the same way we talk about, you know, any of these like more theatrical type stuff. That's what leaned more emo. And that's what got the emo kids into a lot more of these types of punk bands.
Yeah.
A band that is more traditional punk, pop punk leaning. It's like this is their emo record because it is the theatrical one. It is the one with the most like costuming. It's the one with the most like metaphor and ideas behind it. And that's what gravitates emo kids towards the music is like, oh, I like heavy, heady concepts that like I can dive into and like really enjoy the more I listen to it and the more that I dive into the lore behind it. Like this is certainly the Green Day emo record.
Yeah.
And they never did it again. Because then they were just radio alternative.
21st Century Breakdown is a close equivalent.
Exactly. Because this record was so successful. They're like, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And it's
21st
like, we all want Dookie, bro.
So good. Yeah, I also
we all
like
want
Dookie,
bro. Before we get into our thoughts and opinions on American Idiot, make sure you are subscribed. We have many more videos coming of reviews from the past 20 years. We finally caught up. We're doing it. We're doing 20 years of reviews. All of the records that came out in the last 20 years. Make sure you are subscribed. They are all coming down the pike. We also have a ton of other content that we have reacts. We have thoughts on other music, not just reviews of records that you probably listened to already and saw them on tour this summer. So make sure to subscribe and see what else we do. When this record came out, I had a friend who we were kind of making some music together. He was a guitarist and very talented. Like I was friends with a lot of musicians in high school, and he was like, oh, you know that new Green Day record that just came out like 2 days ago? Yeah, I already learned it. Like I already know all the guitar parts to it.
All right.
Because
What
it's
a
like,
flex.
this is just, it's not hard. It's 3 chords per song. And like listening to it, it's interesting in comparison now to things like The Black Parade. right? Where you're like, there's so much going on here. And what Green Day created with this record is so much, but with so little. I didn't really care for this record that much when it came out beyond the singles. I was like, I don't care who St. Jimmy is. I don't care about the Jesus of Suburbia. But American Idiot bangs. Boulevard of Broken Dreams bangs. Wake Me Up When September Ends does bang, even though it's been overplayed as fuck.
Oh my God, yeah.
But it do bang.
It do
Holiday
bang.
do bang. So like the singles definitely did bang. But I didn't feel as great about this record at the time. But certainly, like, having seen them on their tour celebrating the 20 years of this summer and having listened to it again for this, I get, like, that it is a very simple rock opera in a very, like, classic rock style that I didn't really acknowledge before. There's a lot here that sounds like Meatloaf, like straight up Meatloaf. Like, if you listen to Paradise by the Dashboard Light by Meatloaf, this sounds exactly like it. It's just a very, like, easy punk rock with high theming, a lot of vocal parts, a lot of like movements throughout each individual song. I still don't understand the concept of putting songs into one thing, right? Like Holiday and Boulevard of Broken Dreams don't need to be one song and like lean into one another. They can just be two separate songs. I get that like this album was supposed to be something else besides just here's my songs, right?
Yeah.
Here's a bunch of tracks we put together on a record and we're trying to sell it that way. This was supposed to be one package thing together and listen to from front to back as one thing. What's interesting is that I still am like, I don't know about some of it. And then I have been listening to it a couple more times for like this review. And I'm like, I think I'm starting to get it. I think I'm starting to enjoy it. I think it helps that Green Day is one of the best live bands I've ever seen. Like straight up insane live band. I'm going to like your music more having seen a phenomenal show, seeing the performance, seeing the members of the band performing it. I'm always going to like the record more. So I still think I'm like maybe a 6 out of 10 on this record, but it's growing. It's getting better. I'm going to be honest. Like I'm maybe
Jesus
6 out of 10.
Christ.
I really lean toward the singles and some of the other stuff. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's happening.
What?
It sounds like Meatloaf.
I was a little bit late to the Green Day train when I was in high school because I always had authority figures tell me you can't listen to this because
the most specific reason why you would listen to Green Day is because my parents said I can't listen to Green Day.
Where it was very much, oh, well, this is a band that talks about smoking weed and we don't do that. And like,
Green
remember,
Day.
this is like, you know, when I'm in high school, 2009. But when I finally got a little bit older in high school, I had a lot of friends who liked Green Day. And I said, okay, like, let me just give it a try. So I listened to the singles, American Idiot, listened to Dookie, and I love Dookie. It's one of my favorite albums. But listening to American Idiot and going through it all, because I'm also someone who listens from front to back on albums. I don't really like to put anything on a playlist or skips. It's just not how I listen to music. This tells such a cohesive, immersive story. And especially if you are somebody who is very anti-authority, you are involved in like what is going on politically, you have commentary, you are somebody who is from maybe a disadvantaged background, or you have been in similar situations of what they're talking about, you can kind of find some solace and resonation into it, where I feel during that time, especially too with a lot of rock music, you didn't have a lot of that being discussed or talked about, or having any type of social commentary on what was happening. I felt that this is definitely an album for those who could have been the underdog, the ones who were misunderstood or had so much anger behind them that nobody else in their space was able to understand.
I did find it interesting that this was turned into a musical when it was feeling so targeted towards George Bush at that time, right? Because you're like, there's a redneck agenda, and you're like, well, that's clearly about George Bush, and it's like, no, this is a very personal record about like all these characters, and like there's a musical behind it, and so much happens here, and it's like, brother, that's about George Bush. He's the president right now.
They have personified what is happening. That's what people do.
I think it didn't help that like Warped Tour did a compilation called Rock Against Bush, and it came out like there were a few issuances of that came out during this time.
Yeah, I remember hearing about
So it's like
those.
Rock Against Bush and American Idiot come out at the same time. It's like a punk rock compilation and a punk rock opera. And so there's too many words in that sounded the same. And it was just the fact that like you're associating it together. Everything on Warped Tour and everything that Green Day was doing just made sense together. So I think there's a little bit of that, but certainly I think as we've progressed through it, they have repurposed the song American Idiot to mean more of current politics and current life and current all that. And certainly I see a lot here that, you know, has not changed over 20 years. Certainly. I don't know. I think it speaks to the fact that it is a story, not like a moment in time record. And we can talk about that later when we talk about their legacy. But certainly like this is a record that has been able to stand the test of time because it wasn't so about that moment in time.
What are some of your top tracks since you think it's a solid 6 out of 10 here?
It's not solid. It's a loose 6. It's a light 6. Fantano rules. I don't want to pick the singles. We'll just already say all the singles are great. American Idiot, I think, still bangs as maybe like, you know, the most overplayed single on this.
Yeah.
Besides Boulevard and Wake Me Up. Listening back this time, one of the songs that really stood out to me is Give Me Novocaine.
Let's go.
I like the more like 90s, like this being 04 is like we're kind of leaving a lot of that 90s alternative stuff. Obviously, this was a big radio band, so you know, they still are influenced by a lot of that like late 90s, early 2000s stuff. But I certainly felt like this was the most like 90s sounding song on it. It gave me like this interesting nostalgia from hearing it. And I think this record is meant to instill a nostalgia in you even when it like came out, right? Like it's supposed to sound like this idyllic, nostalgic, comfortable place because it's supposed to tear all that down. I think like I think the nostalgic sound of it is intentional. And so I think that's the one that really stood out to me as identifiable for that moment in it.
Nice. I definitely love that you love Give Me Novocaine because that is one of my favorite songs off of this album too. I think what you related to with it being the 90s, that is definitely the vibe I got. And I feel because you have this like kind of ukulele beginning to usher you into this, when you then layer it upon these very catchy lyrics, easily remembered with a lot of the guitars and the basic drum beats as well, it just kind of impacts a little bit differently. I feel that the messaging comes out here of saying, give me Novocaine because everything is just so messed up right now. I cannot deal with it. And that just transcends still from when it originally came out to now with a variety of things people could probably relate this to realistically as well. This is just one of my favorite songs. And originally I wrote it off because it started off so slow for me. And I said, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, what is this? But then it just picks up, and then we're in Bangertown, USA.
Yeah, and it goes into She's a Rebel, which is also great. It's hard to pick because it's like, am I picking a 7-minute song that's actually 2 songs, or am I picking one song of the 2 of them? So I'm picking them separately. Another song that also really stood out to me on this listen is the closer, What's Her Name? I like that it is sort of a softer ending, but it is still like a very like kind of snotty, sarcastic, punk, soft song at the end of it. I definitely noticed the attitude in it upon this listen. Like there's a lot of like these faster, punkier songs that are talking shit. And this one felt like I'm not talking shit. I'm just reminiscing or having this moment of consciousness that I'm like identifying these things that are happening in my life, and it's softer, but it still has the same emotion and attitude behind it. To me, it just really stood out on this listen as like, yeah, wow, like that hits, man. That hits hard. Like this experience and this story that you are having, that you end with this song, it really surprised me, I think, on this listen where I'm like, you know what? That's fantastic.
This was
6 out of 10.
This was one of the songs I was so excited to hear live, and I cried like a baby because this song means a lot to me interpersonally. But I think when you say that they do have this attitude in this still, because you are going on this journey and you're wrapping it up and you're reflecting and reminiscing about everything that just happened. And with that in mind, you're kind of going to say, yeah, I was like this event, like in the past. I don't remember certain people's faces, their names, especially if they were only, here and there. And I think a lot of us, especially if we look back on our adolescent years, we can say, yeah, there's people that I would have to really dig to remember their names, but we had good group mutual friend hangouts. I have no qualms against them. It's just I don't remember because they weren't that, picturesque pivotal in my life at that time. But it's also, for me, the OGs will know, when you watch the ending of SLC Punk, the movie, one of my favorite movies.
She's talking about the lore again.
I'm talking about the lore.
Pick me up. Mom. She doesn't know the lore.
I always correlate SLC Punk and the ending of it with What's Her Name pretty heavily because we have the main character saying, my best friend died. I have to move on in life. In order for me to change the world, to change society, I have to go. And essentially the main character goes to law school, figure out their life to try to be better, to try to be the most punk person. You have to be somewhat educated in what you're trying to do in order to make some type of impact and social change.
Sort of.
And you're looking back on.
It's a critique on the idea of like complete rebellion and being that type of person and realizing that like the world will eventually catch up to you. It's a very immature and childish belief system. And it's sort of like a Peter Pan syndrome type shit where it's like, I don't want to grow up and I want to live in Neverland forever. And it's like, you can't. And no critique on like the characters for making those choices. It's more like this is society's choice for you, and you can't live this way forever. I've seen the movie too.
Okay, sure.
Watched it like 2 or 3 times back in high school, and like really stuck with me. We need to revisit "Wake Me Up When September Ends" just out of like, okay, but this song is really good. This song is a banger. That's why you hear it too often, and that's why you're so sick of it.
Yeah,
is because the song just is very good. I think that song like changed modern radio. Like everybody wanted to write more songs, in maybe not in a positive way, because a lot of bands started to like get slower and much like in the 80s when every band was doing like power ballads and shit, like it made every band want to do that song. But we can't deny the song is absolutely amazing. The song is very good.
No, it is really good. And I wish that it wasn't a meme, and I understand why it's a meme, but it just gets so tiring after all these years. It's like, guys, find another joke. I'm bored. Stop.
Everything's overwrought with it, overdone. It's lame. But I think, again, listening this time, seeing it live, was like, the song is just really good, man. It hits. The emotion of it like comes through. It's a simple song that just has like loud and soft and ballady parts, but it just works, and it just is a good song. And like you can tell that everybody identifies with it immediately because it's just ubiquitous. It's like everybody knows the song, everybody's heard it, everybody knows all the words to it. It's great.
Yeah, it's long lasting.
Long lasting, man.
I would say
we got September every year.
I would say the other song that I really like from this too is also She's a Rebel.
Yeah.
It's just a fun little song, and it's repetitive, but it's still like calling back to their original punk roots too. Yes. It's just fun. It's bouncy.
I honestly thought this was off of an older record when I first heard it, because I thought, oh yeah, that sounds like something that was off of like Nimrod or something else that came before this. So I was surprised when, I finally learned, this is not recently, but I finally learned like this is off of this record, because I was like, oh, this is more like that classic punk sound they do. It's a good song.
It's good. It's fun.
It's a good song. Solid 6. Light 6. I like this record, okay? I do like it. I'll give you my spicy opinion on this record.
All right.
I just think that the musical side of it pulls some away when you're listening to it as like you have to listen to this record as a full record now.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why Wake Me Up When September Ends, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Holiday, like those songs were so overplayed. They're good songs, but in the context of listening to this as a record, it's fine. It's just that they were overplayed on radio as singles. So like this is the issue that comes up with like Green Day as a band that I've always thought is like Green Day is a singles band. Green Day to me always has some amazing tracks that are the singles, and the rest of them are kind of hit or miss. There's some filler, there's some not. Dookie was obviously like a magical record for them that they just re-released, they demade.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. The things that have always stood out to me about Green Day is that they have a massive catalog of singles that you don't need to really dive into their entire catalog. And I do think that there's some on this where I'm like, yeah, I know the singles, and the singles are the best parts of this. It always will be that. I think when you listen to this record as a full package, then you start to understand why these other songs are as good. And that's why I'm building into it now, is because I'm spending more time with this as a full package versus the years of just hearing Holiday on the radio, hearing Boulevard of Broken Dreams on the radio, hearing Wake Me Up When September Ends on the radio, hearing American Idiot, not as much on the radio anymore. I feel like we wore that out in 0405.
I also feel that right now with the election and
like, no,
other things there, people are like, I don't want to deal with that right now.
I get it. I do think that listening to this as a full package unit album makes the difference. That also is what kind of takes me out of it, is like, I don't always want to do that. Sometimes I just want to hear banger after banger after banger. And when I listen to Jesus Suburbia and I'm like 4 minutes into it, I'm like, oh, there's more. Okay. Oh, there's more? You're going to do another Meatloaf section here? All right, cool, man. All right, awesome. Can we fucking get to the songs?
It's like that one meme. It's like, that's enough sauce.
It's too much sauce.
It's like, that's enough.
That was Fantano. Lizzie, do you have any spicy takes on this?
My main spicy take would just be just the songs are overplayed that are overplayed. Again, I'm a big listen to everything from front to back girly, so this never really deterred me. I thought this was incredibly theatrical. It's immersive in the way that you listen to it. However, if somebody were to come up to me and said, yes, my favorite Green Day song is Holiday, I will be like side-eyeing them a little bit.
No one's favorite Green Day song is off this record.
Ideally, if you come up to me, I'm going to be very shady of you.
Like, I think mine is either Brain Stew, She.
Singles.
All singles for me. All my favorites, like all the Green Day songs to me are singles. Okay.
Pulling Teeth.
Brain Stew is on the Godzilla soundtrack, and on that version, they play Godzilla noises during the riff. It's like doo-doo, doo-doo. It's fucking beautiful. That's when music was best.
When music was good, we had Godzilla noises incorporated into everything.
Music was the best it's ever been. Godzilla 2000 soundtrack. Those are our thoughts. Those are our opinions on Green Day's American Idiot. But before we end the episode, we want to talk about the legacy of this record. It just celebrated its 20 years. They did a full tour.
Yeah.
Played Wrigley Field here.
We were there.
It was massive. And like sold out stadiums across the country. It's clear this record has stood the test of time. It's clear that the messages and the meaning, all the background of this record has resonated with people throughout the past 20 years. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to add this question into this, like to end these things, is like, it's amazing that we are able to have seen this record for the last 20 years and what it has become and how, you know, this nostalgia wave and all this, like it's not just about making money. Like it is about making money.
Well, yeah.
They're selling out stadiums. They're making money. Green Day's doing very well right now. It clearly resonated. It clearly meant something to us. And we go to the show and we go, holy shit, this is incredible. This is an insane record that has lasted this long, that has meant this much to this many people. It's not just about George Bush. It's about like society. It's about where we came from at the time and how nothing has really changed. And we are experiencing that and we are living in it. And this record does give some words and some meaning behind that. So I certainly think this record stands the test of time. It is one of the all-time records for sure.
You definitely see it. Like when we were at the show, there was so many kids.
Yeah.
And like just multiple generations of families just saying, we've been listening to Green Day for forever.
Yep. Which
I think I wouldn't have seen like right now in my life, but to see it happening, it's so crazy and surreal because this is a band outside of it, them being just kind of inherently political at the end of the day too. Yep. This is a band that just has done so much with their music to be able to have such a large spread across every demographic possible. And people are just still going there and they're saying, yes, I love Green Day. Yes, this and this. And even if some things are backwards with how they feel about certain things that they're saying lyrically, musically, they're still into it. They still feel they're listened to and heard and received upon. And I just think, too, Green Day has always just been one of those mainstream bands that has stayed openly vocal and political, too. Yep. And we don't see that happen a lot because once you reach that level at a certain point in mainstream, your management will probably talk to you and say, hey, we're going to have a conversation. Yeah. But they're not as outspoken as they were even maybe a decade ago, but they are still very outwardly like...
They're rich because they went on this tour.
Yeah, but they say a lot of things during their shows, and we've all seen probably articles, we've heard it. They are still as outspoken as they probably can be for a band their size, and that's something that I do respect because they're kind of sticking true to their punk roots there.
So yeah, good on you. Good on you, Green Day. Even a 6 out of 10 can't take away all the money you made on that fucking tour.
They got us.
They got us. Those are our thoughts. Those are our opinions on this record. What do you think? Let us know down in the comments. Hit a like if you like Green Day. That'll let them know. Billy Joe is checking our comments.
Yeah, Trey Cool's also coming on in.
Trey Cool is Mike and his dirnt. Make sure to subscribe. We have many more reviews coming, many more conversations about albums that have been around for way too long that you know too well and have heard too many times on the radio. So make sure to subscribe for that. But until Green Day and until American Idiot, we will see you there.